Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Clio Talk. My name is Matt,
And I'm RC.
and we have some good rail talk to give you guys today. But you went to Omaha recently,
I did.
and I'm going to Omaha soon.
Oh, you are.
How was it?
It was nice. It's a lot larger than you think because I've been to Lincoln a lot, right? And it's the capital. You know, they got the big college there. So I kind of just figured that it was the biggest town. But Omaha, I think, is larger. Like they have one building I think is about the same height as the tallest building in Missouri. And they're getting one that's going to be 10 feet taller than it, getting constructed right now. Like they're laying down the foundation right now. I mean, they've got, the zoo with the Desert Dome, TM. They got a cool museum. It's just like, wow, this is like actually like a nice town. Like it's very walkable, surprisingly.
The zoo is basically the only thing I've ever been to at Omaha, other than like I've been to like a concert there as well. But like the zoo is legendary.
Yeah, but see, and that's where I was steered wrong, is I had been to the zoo and been to Lincoln, so I just kind of assumed the zoo was Omaha and there was nothing else. But it's like way on the outskirts, like, very outskirts of suburbia. There's a whole downtown core that's like pretty nice, actually. Like we were walking around at like 9 o'clock to go get ice cream, and it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, and you saw the buses.
Yeah, they have a rapid transit bus that just hit 1 million riders this year. And it was pretty efficient. We were sitting at a bar and just watching it go by, and just about every 10 minutes, it was right at the stop. So it's efficient. It's articulated, I believe.
Fancy.
Big bendy bus.
Bendy
yeah.
bus.
Yeah, Omaha BRT.
Well,
I did hear they're thinking about putting in a Kansas City style streetcar, though, too.
that's good.
Yeah, I heard from somebody who lived there that we were meeting up with that they're talking about putting in a little bit of light rail. They got a couple areas that like are pretty obvious contenders for it too, like the Union Pacific headquarters. Speaking of rails,
Yeah, will UP pay for that though?
you got to imagine to be somewhat of a vanity project of, hey, our world headquarters of this massive railroad company is serviced by railroad. Yeah.
But it needs to be the UP railroad. It can't be a local municipal railroad because then people will get ideas that you can have municipal railroads.
Well, they could get their branding on it. Have it like you could get a cargo streetcar. There you go.
That would be actually really cool. And so something that I know we talked about earlier, which is going to be part of this podcast, is if you ever like bought those high-speed trains from the Japanese or maybe like a European country that's able to run those 200-mile-an-hour trains, and you run it from like St. Louis to Kansas City to Denver, what's to stop you from also having like high-speed freight on that as well? Because, you move a lot of stuff with trucks. And I know that's the meme, I guess, is, getting one of the Shinkansen bullet trains, but it's the perfect testing ground.
The American bullet train. No, but if you were, I know that there's like a big East Coast mentality because the East Coast is kind of in charge of rail planning, like continental rail planning in the United States for some reason, just because they use a lot of trains. But it's like, is there a more perfect? I know the whole Northeast Corridor thing is like a thing because density or whatever, like use of transit. But is there a better spot to test a bullet train in the United States than like the Midwest, like the Heartland area? Because there's like no mountains at all. It's flat as a board. And, you were talking about the St. Louis, KC, Denver. That's basically a straight line. Like, There you go. And if it goes off, exploding, well, it's in a farm field. It's not in...
And killing everyone on board.
Yeah, it's not in Hoboken, New Jersey, though. You know what I mean? It's not going to go off in the middle of downtown New York City at 350 miles an hour. But, yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of rail, there's more development going on for Amtrak.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have from Oklahoma, from the Norman transcript, the Norman City Council has approved a resolution in favor of Amtrak's announcement that will open a new line for passenger rail in Oklahoma. The company announced a nationwide expansion that includes a new route on its Heartland Flyer from Oklahoma City through Wichita, Kansas, to a connection that ends in Newton, according to its website. The new service will offer one daily round trip and 2 additional trips daily between Oklahoma City and Fort Worth, Texas. Norman is a stop on the route to Texas, Amtrak's website reads.
So this is basically the Amtrak Connexos plan, where I think a couple years ago, maybe at the beginning of Biden's term or whatever, they unveiled the big, the map TM, where it's basically just expansions and, speed enhancements or whatever that they're planning, that hypothetically they'd like to do. But I think this is the first major one, at least I've seen, of them actually putting down concrete dollars towards doing it,
Yeah.
Because this is a major, and I know we have a lot of like East Coast, West Coast listeners. This is a pretty major thoroughfare that, if you look at the transit map of the United States, it's impossible to get to Dallas without going to St. Louis or Chicago, and it's impossible. It's just like a giant black hole where, from Kansas City, if you want to get to, Kentucky, to Memphis, you have to go to Chicago. If you want to go from Kansas City to Omaha, which a 3-hour drive, you have to take the train to Chicago first and then go to Omaha, complete opposite direction, which it's like, I guess in theory, it's good that you have a transit hub, but going 8 hours in the wrong direction, even if trains are more like carbon neutral, like carbon friendly or whatever than driving, it doesn't seem that much of a like net carbon savings to just go 8 hours in the wrong direction and then 8 hours in the correct direction. You're almost tripling the length of the trip, tripling the amount of like emissions you'd have to put to get to the location. It's just nonsensical.
And God forbid if you're a person from Kansas City who wants to take a trip to Memphis to see the Big Bass Pro Pyramid. Currently on the route map, you would then need to go to Chicago, then back down to Memphis again. So this problem goes to multiple different cities, which are pretty large and for American standards, probably in the top like 200 American cities connecting each other. All these cities have people that live in them. They aren't abandoned, apocalypse zones.
And I guess importantly for this Heartland Flyer expansion, this connects Oklahoma City. They don't have to go to St. Louis to get to Kansas City. It connects them up with the Southwest Chief, and it connects a lot of people go from Oklahoma to Kansas to go to school, or vice versa, or go from Texas to Kansas to go. I know my alma mater, Wichita State, offers a lot of discounts to people in Oklahoma, Nebraska, or Texas. Basically, they get in-state tuition, so this helps facilitate college students too. I mean, there's a lot more than just people doing daily commuting. If you want to go to school, well, you can just hop on the train now. It's an option, instead of having to go all the way up to Chicago, all the way down to Dallas, and then up to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, or having to get a car.
Yeah, or having to get a car. Because that's the number one thing that I've always had a problem with transit in the United States, is people making fun of Midwesterners for driving everywhere. Because there certainly is a car centricism that tends to be the prevailing mindset in most Midwestern people, but it's not really assisted by the fact that every single dollar of like federal money goes towards either expanding in the Northeast Corridor or expanding California, and the Midwest basically doesn't get anything. So why the hell should I, take a train when it's going to take a 14-hour train ride to go 2-hour drive? Or I could just fly there for an hour. It's just like, it's like, the big heads in Philadelphia, New York, whatever, are just like trying to make us drive everywhere without actually having any incentive to not do so, and then making fun of us for driving it. And maybe that's just like my little bit of a underdog, browbeaten down. Nobody loves us.
I remember seeing a post once of I think it was actually a TikTok. I am sorry, everyone, of someone advocating.
You didn't have to admit that.
I didn't have to admit that, no. Where some person just like, why would we even need high-speed rail here, gesturing toward the middle of America? We only need it here on the coasts, forgetting that a large portion of the United States population and also a large portion of the American GDP comes from the middle part in between those two mountain ranges.
And it's not even like oh, we're flyover territory, though that is it to a certain extent. It's more or less just major policy platform of pro-train, pro-transit, pro-public transit, whatever people is reducing carbon emissions or whatever. But then they only seem to want to get the people who already ride trains to just ride trains that are like a mile an hour faster, or you can go 10 feet further with it, rather than incentivizing people who don't have any access to have trains, like who wouldn't normally ride a train, to get them on a train. Like the Missouri River Runner. That's straight in the middle of country, right? From St. Louis to Kansas City, two very suburbanized, car-focused cities. But train was freaking packed when I rode it. Like, people want to... If you offer a $50 ticket from one city to another that people travel between, people will use it. And people won't drive because...
And the thing that you need to do with these is, one, you have to be faster than a car, and two, you have to be cheaper than the amount of gas it would take to get there.
Yeah.
And if you can be faster and cheaper than the tank of gas it would take to get there, then your ridership will go up drastically.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people who do take the Missouri River Runner on a frequent basis for weekend trips between St. Louis or Kansas City, but just as much as what happened to you happens to them all the time, where you get stuck on the rails, and then what's the point? Because it's a 3.5 hour drive. If you spend 8 hours sitting, just outside of Boonville, what's the point?
Because it's really nice to be on the train when there's like highway backups and, we're just, by traffic, we're driving past you. But then when you're just parked, as I was when I went to Chicago a few months ago, with nothing, like, there's no traffic, there's nothing wrong, like nobody jumped out in front of the tracks, and all the cars are still just zooming on by. It's like, wow, I feel like a real idiot now, don't I?
Yeah. But at least you can drink.
Yeah, that's true. But if you get drunk, they kick you off.
Really?
Yeah, it's lame. You can drink, but you can't be drunk. But
you think they'll let us drunk drive the train?
I hope so. I mean, you should be forced to drink when drive on the train. I mean, it's on rails. What are you going to do? I think my dad said that the other day when I was talking about them not being security screenings on Amtrak trains. And he was like, that's kind of weird because, what if it gets hijacked?
Where are you going to go?
Like, where are you going to go, dude?
Yeah, you can go backwards or forwards.
Yeah, it's like it's on rails. Like it's not going to... So another train has hit the World Trade Center.
And speaking of Midwestern with the River Runner... I rode the St. Louis Metro system. The other day.
I believe you live tweeted it.
I did. I went to a St. Louis Battlehawks game. I got incredibly drunk.
The XFL.
And then took the Metro, which I was really excited about because I was drunk. And in retrospect, looking back at it, wasn't that great because the same principle of, it was cheaper than a gallon of gas. But
how much was it? And how far did you go for that amount of money?
It was $2.50, and I went from basically Ballpark Village to the end of one of the lines. I'm not going to say which of the lines because I don't want to.
I just meant like a mileage, like.
I don't exactly know the mileage,
okay.
but I did ride most of the route.
Okay, so like 250. That's not bad.
Yeah, but the issue is basically you could have driven. For how long it took to ride it, you could have driven from where we were back to where we were staying, back to where we came from, and then back again on the highway, which wasn't that great. And I'm not sure if that's just because the driver was just driving really slow or whatever, or maybe it was not peak hours, trying to find any way, but it was a rather disappointing experience.
Got 2 lines, I believe, like the red and the blue line.
Yes.
What exactly, how many trains do they operate?
I don't know, but it wasn't really that long of a wait. One of the lines arrived first, basically, when we were there, and it wasn't even like 5 minutes until the other line that we needed arrived, going the direction that we needed to go.
Yeah, because I guess that is always the problem with those things, is it's great if you have a streetcar, subway, whatever system, but then when the community, government or whatever doesn't invest in it enough to make it actually run reliably, then people look at it as a waste of money because it's like, well, it takes 40 minutes for the bus to get here or whatever. And the the time it takes for the bus to arrive or the streetcar to arrive or the metro to arrive is greater than the sum total of the driving time. When in reality, the solution to that is just do like they do in Omaha, just run the buses more, just get more buses, run them more often, get bus lanes or whatever. Because like in Johnson County, that's the issue is they have like 3 bus lines and it can take 40 minutes at a stop if they even ever come, and it's unreliable, so nobody uses it. So then they look at nobody using it and go, well, why are we funding it? So then they cut funding, and then less people use it, becomes even less reliable, and just the service degrades. Like it's like a cycle.
Yeah, and another gripe that goes towards that, I know a person who needs to use a Ride KC transportation service in order to get around. They're unable to drive, but they need to go to certain like day services. And living out in the suburbs of Johnson County, a lot of the like free like transportation for someone who is disabled is outsourced to other companies who do not show up on time at all. Will either show up completely way early and not actually like be there, like the person's not up or not ready to go, or show up so late that they're not going to be able to make it to their doctor's appointment or anything like that. And that's it. Unreliable public transportation, especially for people who are disabled, is it's a game ender, because they don't have the job option like I do to jump in my car and be like, all right, well, the bus is late, I'll just drive.
Well, I think that's the micro transit incentive that the Johnson County Transit, whatever, is trying to do, where basically it's just Uber. It's just instead of buses running on a route, you just call them, and it's like vans instead of buses. And it's just stupid because it's basically one step away from not having a bus system, which is dumb. Because, again, people take the wrong look on this like constantly, which is it's not a question of, well, I want to drive, so I'm not going to use the bus, so therefore we shouldn't pay for the bus. It's, yeah, you can drive, but what about the people who can't drive, like kids or disabled people? Or like, what if you have like a surgery, right, and you live by yourself and you can't drive home from the surgery? Well, would you rather call an Uber or just jump on the bus or whatever? It's like the whole point of the service is just being a like backbone mobility system for people who can't drive, because when you center it around driving, that's a massive amount of money too that people have to be able to exist in your city. So it disincentivizes, and maybe that's the point of it all. Is maybe Johnson County, Kansas City, all those areas want to disincentivize people from living there if they can't afford a car, because maybe it prices a certain segment of people out of the market, and maybe some of those areas would be okay if those people were priced out of the market.
Well, and that's going to be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and then back to my Metro experience in St. Louis.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that there's a Metro card that you can buy and use, but I had to buy like just an individual one ride ticket. And that system I thought was nice at the beginning, but the validation thing, because you bought the ticket and then you had to stick the ticket into a validation thing, which gave it a stamp, and then you went down, and it worked exactly like how it worked in Minnesota.
Minnesota, we just bought it, and then we never had to show it to anyone.
Well, we bought like a 6-hour thing, and this was a one ride ticket, but it worked similar to a Minnesota like stop, where like you could have a ticket, or you could just go on it and take the risk of getting caught without it. And both times, I don't think anyone on my rides got caught without it. But I had both times in Minnesota and in St. Louis, I had the ticket. But I know some people that I was with didn't validate their ticket in that thing, which could have been also an issue. So I think maybe reworking that a bit, or maybe just buy Metro cards. But I was with people who are from St. Louis, and they didn't, really know how to do the Metro card or really ride that thing very often, which says something about the ridership of the area if you're a St. Louis local and you don't really ride it that often, when I, as a Kansas City local, have ridden both KC buses and the KC streetcar.
Yeah.
And that's just, I see it as kind of a failure of the system. I mean, obviously it's way cooler than what Kansas City has, and it's been there way longer, but if Kansas City had the ability to do something, I feel like maybe the execution would have been a bit better. But I don't want to be that weird little brother who always keeps thinking about St. Louis when St. Louis doesn't think about Kansas City at all.
Yeah. Well, and that's the weird thing is it's like it is like a little brother syndrome, like you say, but like other than having more people and having a subway, I mean, Kansas City has a football team, like a real one, which is better. Kansas City has like the draft is coming to Kansas City. It's not coming to St. Louis. The World Cup is coming to Kansas City. It's not coming to St. Louis. You know, it's like we,
St. Louis just got a soccer team.
yeah, we've had one for years. We have a okay, well, okay. Well, St. Louis has to beat on baseball, like, but it's just like, is population the end all be all for cities? Is that just like it? Like, oh well, they got 1 million more people, so that's it. Because it's just like,
Well, do they even have 1 million more people than us?
I think the metro area for KC is like 2.2 million, and St. Louis is like 3.2 million.
Don't quote us on that. We don't have any like factual facts up on that at all.
I have my brain, which I'm pretty sure is close. So, but it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of a weird dichotomy because it's like, yeah, I guess it's like
Yeah, but St. Louis is like the last East Coast looking city. Then it turns into like is
well, they're the gateway to the West,
yes,
right?
St. Louis looks completely different aesthetically and architecturally than Kansas City.
Yeah. Okay, here I started a firestorm with this. What would you say? I was on Twitter and I got into an argument with people. Regardless, though, what do you think the best city in the Midwest is?
Oh boy,
I didn't consult you on this before. And if any of you follow us on Twitter and you saw that, I was drunk.
He was drunk, and sadly, it's been deleted because
not sadly
because you were trying to pick a fight with someone who
I wasn't trying to pick a fight. I was trying to talk to them, and then they took it like combatively, and it's like, well, okay, see, now you've taken it. Anyways, what do you think the best city in the Midwest is?
Okay. I don't want to pick Kansas City because we have a regularly Kansas City focused podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of shitty. Yeah, other than Kansas
City. I really like the Twin Cities. I'm a big fan of the Twin Cities.
Is that the Midwest?
Is Denver in the Midwest?
I don't think Denver is. See, now, I guess that's just like a personal preference of where do you consider the Midwest. Is Denver the Midwest? Because, I mean, it's not...
Or is it Rocky Mountain, like the West?
I would say that Denver's the first Western city.
That's the first Western
because it's
city.
like the boundary of the West.
But
right?
some people don't consider like Kansas to be in the Midwest, or some people consider Missouri to be in the South.
See, those people are wrong. Like I'm both. Well, okay, Missouri on the South, you got a better argument just because culturally it's more southern than most Midwest cities. But Kansas City, I think, is like the furthest Midwest. I think everything in between Kansas City and Denver is like the heartland.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the farmland, prairie, just completely flat.
So for ease of purpose, I'm drawing the line. Basically, imagine the map of the United States. We're going Cleveland all the way down the border of Ohio to Cincinnati. We're hooking and riding the Ohio River basically down to the Mississippi, and then we're cutting in through Missouri, doing a slight cutout for the Ozarks. I'm not really considering them to be part of the Midwest.
Almost different culture.
And then hooking up to Kansas City, maybe riding it out to about like Lawrence, and then hooking up and then sliding that basically up into the border of Canada, then driving across, hitting the Great Lakes, pulling the Michigan.
Okay, so you do think Minneapolis.
Yeah, I would consider Minneapolis Midwest.
Because I don't know what else you would count it, I guess.
Yeah. I would consider Minneapolis Midwest, and if we aren't counting Minneapolis Midwest, I don't want to say Chicago because I'm a hater as well. And I don't want to say St. Louis because of Missouri.
Why are you a Chicago hater?
For lore purposes, my parents are from the state of New York, and they're the third city. And I mean, just your pizza's a bread bowl. I mean,
see, now this is going to be controversial, but I think Chicago is going to be my pick. I really liked it when I was there.
I mean, okay,
I've never been to New York. I've never been to the East Coast, period. I'm a landlocked boy, like, true to heart.
Oh, I am raised mainly in the Midwest man myself, but, like, and I like Chicago. I don't want to, that seems like the easy answer. And
I know
don't
it's the easy answer. I just you picked Minneapolis, and I didn't want to pick Minneapolis.
Minneapolis is it's such a good
It
city.
was nice. I'm not going to pick St. Louis because they're not good. I'm not going to pick Branson because holy Jesus, why would you pick Branson?
Have you been to Branson recently?
No, not recently. I mean, Dayton was okay. They had a cool museum. Indianapolis, I just drove through Indianapolis. I didn't really go there. I've never been to Michigan.
So Indianapolis, I do really like that Soldiers and Sailors circular monument. That is really cool, and it's like, wow, this feels like an actual downtown. And
we should have gone in, but we just drove past.
And well, yeah, and they have this downtown, and then you walk basically like a block or two, and then it's just kind of like, okay, cool. You had this really impressive, like massive skyscraper surrounding this absolutely gorgeous, like Soldiers and Sailors monument, and then it's right back to what you imagine every Midwest city looks like.
Yeah. I haven't been to Cleveland. I'm going to have to go there soon. I refuse to put Cincinnati for sport-related reasons.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of left with Chicago.
My cousin's husband's about to open up a brewery in Cincinnati.
Cincinnati?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, sport-related reasons, I can't be a fan of them for like 10 years. So, no, they're okay.
Yeah. Does Wichita count as a Midwestern city? I'm not putting it on the rank, but because it's not even close to
That's
top
a good
10.
question. I mean, I would say Wichita. What is Oklahoma City in? Is that the South, or is that like Tornado Alley? Does that count as a thing?
Well, we're going off of like the standard American Midwest like regions. Like there's the New England, Mid Atlantic, South, Midwest, Southwest, West Coast.
Yeah, because I think Oklahoma would have to be in the Midwest now because it's not really Southern, is it?
It's not, but also, I mean, it has more of a cultural connection towards more Southern things than anything else, and I think more than Missouri.
I mean, yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, Wichita, it's just like I live there, and it just doesn't scream South to me.
No.
But it also isn't really the same as most.
It doesn't have a long history of deindustrialization as most Midwestern cities have, which is not an excuse to ignore Midwestern cities because they are still like very strong, vibrant economic places. It's just
it's just different now.
It's more service industry focused and more office job focused than being a industrial powerhouse.
I think it gets Midwest just because it doesn't fit in with the South. I mean, it just doesn't. If we're doing like the traditional regions, it's definitely not West. There's just nowhere else to put it. I mean,
it's so hard because like Arkansas, 100% South.
Yeah, that's the South.
But Arkansas touches Missouri and Oklahoma, and I think Oklahoma goes more south. I don't have a map in front of me, so don't quote me on that.
I will pull up. I mean, yeah, I think it does.
And like Texas is obviously the South. No, Arkansas goes a bit more south.
Yeah, a little bit.
But Texas is 100% the South. And
yeah, I mean,
it's just
I think the South, like what is quote unquote the South, is pretty much just like a Civil War based distinction.
Yeah,
because like Florida is the South, but culturally,
it is very warm New York.
Yeah, exactly, but it's still the South.
Yeah, and like Virginia is considered in the South, but Virginia is like more of a mid-Atlantic state.
Yeah, even though it was the capital of the South,
yeah.
You know. And like Missouri is very southern, but it also wasn't a part of the Confederacy, which a lot of people I know were very surprised when I tell them that. It's like, yeah, no, it was never a Confederate state.
Did they want to be a Confederate state? Some people did.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
There was a famous, that's a person that Kansas City sometimes tries to claim, Jesse James, who wanted to be Confederate.
Yeah. Quantrill. Okay, here's another question for you. Is Pennsylvania landlocked?
No, because of the estuaries for the rivers.
Okay.
Because Philadelphia has a Navy Yard and has basically kind of a port.
Is Missouri landlocked?
Missouri is, because even though it's connected to the Mississippi and does allow more naval travel through the Mississippi River, it's too far down the Mississippi and has to go through too many different states. And I know what you're pulling up, but there's a difference between that estuary and riding down like the last third of the Mississippi River. There is a difference.
Well, I mean, technically, Philadelphia. Now, is Chicago, is Illinois landlocked? Because, I mean, it's got the same thing as Missouri, right?
It does have the same thing as Missouri, but the Canadians control the access on getting out. So I'm going to have to rule it as landlocked because you can't trust those Canadians.
You can get out without. Wait, no, you can. Oh, I guess you're talking about
you get to the
Montreal,
ocean.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think if you got to count, I don't know. I think that's my contrarian take is Missouri is not landlocked. Have you ever looked at the map of like the live tracker of boats?
There's a boat live tracker?
Yeah, it's like Flight Radar 24.
Were you on Boat Trader?
No, Boat Tracker.
No, I mean, but like Boat Trader popped up where you're trying to buy a boat.
Don't bring that up. You don't have to dox me. No, it's like this. What the hell? This brings up my point of it being landlocked. Is look at how many boats are in the Mississippi at every given time, straight from New Orleans. Like that's a lot of oceanic transit that comes up all the way to Missouri and up to Chicago. Because you don't need to use the Canadians to get to the ocean from there. You can use the Mississippi because they built the big canal right here. So that's what I say is there's a lot less. Even Kansas City, these are like oceanic boats that just go down the Missouri River. Yeah, it's a lot more.
I sometimes forget that the Missouri River is kind of navigable.
Yeah.
Like you can go down the Missouri River.
Yeah, right here. They get a big estuary. It's just like a lot larger than you think. Because like when you drive over the highway or whatever onto it, it's like, yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's like, wow, that is a okay sized, really gross river.
Yeah, it is pretty gross. But yeah. Well, that solves the question. Philadelphia is not landlocked. Missouri is, and Chicago, Illinois. They should really just rename Illinois to Chicago. I can't.
There are the people in Cairo, Illinois that might have a problem with that.
Yeah, you think so? Springfield? Who the hell made Springfield the capital? Come on.
I mean, why is Albany the capital of New York?
Exactly.
Why is Sacramento the capital of California?
Who did this? Seriously, who did this? I don't understand what they were doing in the 1800s when they decided these like state things. Like right here, you got Kansas City, you got St. Louis. No, Jefferson City is the capital.
Also,
of course.
There's nothing in Jefferson City. If you are curious, look at a map of Jefferson City and look at what's there. There's literally
the Capitol building.
The Capitol building, a kind of downtown, the old Missouri State Penitentiary, and then a Walmart.
They do have a Target.
They do have a Target.
So they are a town.
But like Columbia is really close, and Columbia is like quadruple the size. Oh, I forget about Milwaukee.
You forget about Milwaukee? You don't watch Red Letter Media?
I do. I don't watch Red Letter Media, but I did see that they were playing when I was in St. Louis. So you guys can figure out when I was in St. Louis. They were Milwaukee Brewers were playing the St. Louis Cardinals, and they had the Brew Crew. That was their jersey. It just said the Brew Crew.
Hell yeah!
On the Brewers uniform, and that was really sick.
Did you, speaking of baseball, did you see that? This is just completely like a topicless podcast, by the way. At this point, guys, did you see that they're extending beer sales to the 8th inning now in a bunch of major ballparks?
Hell yeah!
Because the games are like an hour and a half long.
I need to go and I need to get the beer bats. Have you seen the beer bats?
Yes, I've seen the beer bats.
I want to pound a beer bat and I want to watch the Kansas City Royals lose 12-2 to a random team that's never going to win another game.
We got our own like Iron Fist O'Donnell or whatever, where I think it was Chris Bubich struck out like 10 guys in a row. Which is like, yeah, no one's ever struck out someone like 10 guys in a row since 1987 as the Royals lose 12-5. It's just like, oh my God.
The Angels situation.
Yeah, Iron Hands O'Donnell. It's like, Shohei Ohtani hit 17 home runs today, something that hasn't been done since Babe Ruth in 1902 as the Angels lose 17-18.
God,
I hate baseball, dude.
The Royals are going to be... Dude, John Sherman just needs to sell the team to a guy who wants to spend money.
My proposal was if you take the Angels, move them to Kansas City, combine them with the Royals, you'd almost have a competent team. Almost.
Like, you'll have everything you want: a young white guy with a mullet, a older white guy who can really hit, and a random Japanese guy who is really good at baseball.
Who's probably the best player in baseball on a team that hasn't made the playoffs the entire time he came from. I feel so bad for Shohei Ohtani because he was making like gangbusters in Japan for like the Japanese league.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call it its actual name because I don't feel like I can say that. But he comes here, he signs, it's like a fat contract with the Angels. I think like $200 million. But, you know, it's like I'm leaving where I'm he's a household name here. But, you know, like you're the face of Japanese baseball in Japan, which it's a pretty big fan base. You're coming to the U.S. not because you, like, are making it big. I was reading an article about him. It's because he wanted to play in the MLB. Like, that was his dream, was I want to play in the MLB because, you know, it's the baseball league. So he took a pay cut from what he was getting in Japan, all to come to a team where they haven't made the freaking playoffs the entire time he's been here. It's like, come on, dude, you got the golden years of Shohei Ohtani's career, and you can't even make the freaking playoffs?
But it's not like the Angels are obviously spending the money because they have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. I don't know how they don't, like.
Well, you get the World Baseball Classic where it's just like the most exciting baseball you've seen in 10 years, you know, like Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout. Oh, and then they go back to the Angels and they suck. It's like, guys, what are we doing? We need like a congressional inquiry into how the Angels are possibly bad. It just doesn't make any sense.
And like the thing that makes me really sad is I know that not everyone can be on the teams that are going to win the World Series. You know, your short list, which are going to the Dodgers, the Yankees, and basically the Red Sox at this point. Like those are like your three best chances and like the most legacy franchises
like your
out
Blue
there.
Bloods or whatever.
And but not everyone can be on them.
There's a thing that you say in baseball, right, where it's like you can't. You know, it's hard because you can't always score, right? Like you can be pitching a lights out game, but if your batters aren't hitting the ball and scoring, well, you're gonna probably lose. But Shohei Ohtani hits the ball too, and he hits it really good. Like he's the pitcher who gets the pitch and score points. How do you lose with that? He's really good at both sides.
Okay, how does that work? Because the National League stopped doing pitchers have to hit. Does he volunteer to hit?
Yeah.
He
He does it on purpose. It's not like he has to hit.
So
he chooses to pitch and hit.
Do the Angels not have a DH then?
I think
because like
he plays outfield. I think he's center field or something like that. But yeah, I think they must not have a DH when he pitches or something. It's weird. I don't know. They're the only team that does it, except for the Royals, where we had Nate Eaton, I think our second baseman or left fielder, pitched the other day.
Are the Royals just giving up and fucking around?
He wasn't bad though, Matt. He was our best pitcher that day. Was our left fielder. He threw a nasty slider, dude. He plays left field. What are we doing?
I hate the Royals so much.
I hate them. It's just like, why is Nate Eaton the best pitcher on our team? Why can't we just have
John Sherman sell the team,
dude? The saddest thing is Billy Butler's been to more World Series than Shohei Ohtani has.
Billy Butler's been to a World Series
in 2014.
He was still on the team.
I think he was.
No way.
Yeah, no. I think he left after that season. And then we had the Crew in 2015. But I think he was still on the team in 2014. Big Country Breakfast.
What was he, like 38?
Yeah, he had to have been. He didn't. It's baseball. He didn't retire until he was like 40.
Man,
I hate the Royals, dude.
I hate them so bad. And we have Zach Greinke again. Remember, we went to the Cy Young when he won it in like 2008.
Yeah,
kids.
You remember when we drafted him, and it's like, wow, we got this all-star pitcher. Oh, okay. I guess he's on the Yankees or wherever.
No, he demanded to be traded because the Royals.
Because they suck.
and where's he at now? On a horrible Royals team.
You know the saddest part?
What?
The Royals in 2008, 2009, whenever, the early 2000s.
Yeah.
They had a better winning percentage than the Royals did last year. Last year was their worst winning percentage in like 20 years.
Okay, at this point, I don't fault Whit Merrifield for doing what he did. He
It's
could,
just anything to get out, dude.
yeah. For people who don't really care about sports, Whit
Which is
Merrifield.
probably most of
Yeah,
our listeners.
sorry, we shifted hard from hardcore transit.
What are we
talk
even going to
to
name this one? How do
baseball.
you even like comprehensively name this podcast?
I don't know, but Whit Merrifield was a player on the Royals who was
One hit wit.
One hit Whit. He was refusing to get vaccinated because of COVID-19, but the Royals were going to go play the Blue Jays up in Toronto, and you had to be vaccinated to play in Canada. And he released basically his statement basically in the shorthand version of it was, well, if the team was actually better and we had a chance of winning something, I would do it. Yeah. And out of spite, the Royals then traded him to the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
so he had to get vaccinated.
And that's the saddest part is
and then I think, don't quote me on this because I don't exactly remember because it's been a few days now, but I think he did score like a pretty like impressive run against the Royals in the series that we played.
He was pretty good. Yeah.
Because he was a pretty solid player.
He's solid. That's okay. That's if you want Royals baseball in a nutshell, we get a generational talent, and next year he's on the Yankees or the Red Sox. We just trade him. It's like the freaking story of the Royals' life is traded for prospects, or traded for cash considerations. Now, every freaking player we've ever had traded for prospects. It's like, come on, guys. Can we just have some players?
Well, the World Series team, you should have, because that's what usually happens, is you probably should have, you had a bunch of guys, you had a bunch of contracts ending, you could have traded most of them and gotten a pretty solid development core to develop and then run for the series in about, like, now, basically. Because we're sniffing 10 years since they won the series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and that's...
Which we didn't do. We let everyone basically get, like... into free agency, and then Ventura died.
Yeah,
rest in peace.
He was our basically we're building our pitching core around him. He was a really good pitcher. He died in a car crash. Not his fault. But yeah, and then it's just like, wow, we got rid of Wade Davis and a bunch of other superstar pitchers that made up our probably one of the best relief pitching cores in the league. Probably close to league history. They got to be up there, like top 10.
Yeah, and now defensive shifts have been basically like restricted. So the way that the Royals,
which is good, I think.
It is good, but the way the Royals did win the World Series through like defensive shifts and a solid pitching core is impossible to do again. You're gonna have to get some big bats.
Yeah,
and big bats cost money.
And the Royals have never wanted to spend money.
John Sherman sold the team.
At least he got rid of Dayton Moore and Cal Eldred.
At least he did, and he did buy it from the Glass family.
At least we're not having anti-masturbation seminars on opening day like Dayton Moore used to do.
What the fuck is wrong with the Royals?
Yeah, he's great.
Why do they have anti-masturbation speeches?
Here's Dayton Moore. He wanted to make sure they're saving their energy for the game.
Oh my God! What this team? Okay.
It's Cal Eldred, our pitching coach. We would have a pitcher who's supposed to be good. He would suck, and then he would get traded to another team and become a lights out like all-star pitcher. It's because our pitching core was like making them worse. And we didn't get rid of them for 5 years.
Are there any developmental prospects from any of the minor league teams, the Royals, or are we just going to do another 1985 drought where we don't do anything?
We're in the middle of the drought right now. We've got Bobby Witt. He's our starter from the Storm Chasers. He got up last year when Whit Merrifield was gone. For context, listeners, if anybody's still listening to the baseball podcast, but for context, when Whit Merrifield and a couple of other players couldn't go to the Blue Jays, we had basically all of our young players come up from the minors, and it was like the best Royals baseball we've seen all year. It was like incredible. Oh my God, they actually know how to play. They're scoring runs or whatever. But it was while we were already mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, so it didn't matter. And then where are those guys now? Either in the minors or traded for prospects.
But Bobby Witt's still here.
Bobby Witt is still here. He's going to be the new Salvador Perez.
When is his contract up, and when is he going to get poached by a different team? Also, why is Salvador Perez still here?
Because he's a good catcher.
But like...
Okay, sorry. He's not a good catcher. Mathematically, analytically, he's not a good catcher. He hits home runs, though.
Yeah,
He's
and,
fun. He hits home runs. He's cool.
He is a. I think the only Royals merch I own is a Salvador Perez Royals T-shirt.
I got a Wade Davis jersey. He's the best closing pitcher, I think, in the history of baseball. Quote me on that.
Man, I mean, honestly, I feel like Salvador Perez is one of the like few Royals merch stuff you can buy, which will still be like maintained. Like it's like that, or buying like a George Brett or Bo Jackson.
He's gonna retire in like 2 years, but yeah, he's Bo Jackson. Yeah, I want to get a Brett Saberhagen jersey at some point, just because the last name's cool. Okay, we need to either get back on the track or just end this because this is going nowhere.
Sorry, everyone. That was baseball and train talk. This has been a Cleo talk. We will have more episodes coming soon. We are reintroducing the actual history themed episodes. We're hoping that it's every 2 weeks have a history episode, and in between that have a talk.
Yeah, if you guys haven't listened to our History of the Space Shuttle, go ahead and tune in. We got episodes 1 and 2 out by the release of this episode, so they're pretty good.
This has been Cleo Talk. You can go ahead and follow us at Cleo History on Twitter. If you like this podcast, go ahead and leave us a review or share it with friends or both. And if you have any suggestions or reviews in any way, shape, or form, if you like National Park episode, if you like this episode, if you like in the histories, you can shoot us an email at cleohistorypodcast@gmail.com. We are on wherever you get podcasts. So that's it for this episode. Thank you.
Bye.